Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Hi, Jeff.
Brett, hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Just okay?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
No, I'm good.
On air. We can process it.
I'm fantastic.
You're fantastic. All right, that's good. I'm glad you did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? Am I supposed to ask you one today? Or
I don't know. I think it's your turn.
Okay.
What do you got for me?
What is something that you do that you feel like you could do better?
Can I just say everything? And we can move on now to our guest.
That's a good idea. Let's do it.
Move on? Yeah. Because you can always do better, right?
Yeah.
You can always change. It doesn't necessarily mean better. You can always change. You can always look at things, how they turned out. Sometimes things that turned out bad may actually be a good thing, right? And sometimes a good thing may actually be a bad thing. So
I don't think we even need to label them as good or bad.
that's correct. Right. It's a thing. It's an experience, something that happens either to you or by you.
And hopefully either you succeed or you learn from it.
Correct.
Perfect. Look at that. Let's move on.
Wow. Okay. Profound. Speaking of profound, our guest today is David Kreiger. David has spent 25 years building high-performance sales teams. For the last 17 years, David has run SalesRoads, the company he founded, which is a sales outsourcing firm that helps companies increase their revenues through comprehensive lead generation and appointment setting programs. David successfully built SalesRoads into a 2-time Inc. 5000 winner. He holds an MBA in marketing and management from, highlight, the Wharton School, and a BA in political science and economics from the University of Pennsylvania. I told you, profound and brilliant at the same time. He is also a contributor to the Entrepreneur magazine, where he shares insights on B2B sales and business leadership. In his spare time, David serves as a venture lab mentor at the Wharton School and is an active member of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. After having been a guest on many podcasts over the years, David started his own podcast in January called Sell Like a Leader, which you can find anywhere you get your podcasts. And it is a must listen for anyone in sales or really anyone looking to learn. Finally, and perhaps most important, David is a dedicated and loving husband and father to 2 amazing boys. Welcome, David.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it. And I already feel wiser for being on this. I now know not to label anything in my life. So I think I am a better person already for these first 3 minutes.
We are wiser for having you, a 2-time graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, on our podcast. So thank you for that. Leave that where it is, David. So, David, tell us how it is you got into building sales, high-performance sales teams, lead generation, and appointment setting business.
Yeah, so I got into it by being fired before I even graduated from college.
Let's unpack that.
I will explain. So after graduating as I was graduating from college, I got a job as a consultant coming out of school. It was a little boutique consulting company. Really excited, to be able to start my career doing that, and got it halfway through my senior year, so I could basically coast right at the end. Well, literally 2 weeks before graduation, I got a call from them, and they basically said, "You know what? That offer we gave you a few months back, we're not going to give it to you anymore. We're having some troubles, so good luck with it." So 2 weeks before graduation, I started scrambling to try to figure out what I wanted to do. So it was 1999. It was the beginning of that whole internet boom thing. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go work in an internet startup. So I found an internet startup that was pretty interesting. It was a B2B eBay. And I thought that there was a lot of potential for it. And I got a job with the VP of sales. And basically the VP of sales said, "Okay, great. You're working for me." It was the 16th employee. "We need an inside sales team. Go build it." What the heck is inside sales? What about it? So, I did what any, I guess UPenn grad would do. I went out and bought Inside Sales for Dummies, and I read it cover to cover, and I started figuring out what I was doing. It was just an amazing ride, right? So, it was one of those things, he became a mentor of mine where, he basically said, listen, we need something, go figure it out, go build it. And that's what I did. And it became the highest performing group, and we had a whole group of outside salespeople within the whole organization. And I love building it. I love the idea of building sales teams, building the processes, building the training, all of the interpersonal things that goes into motivating a sales team, figuring out what will make them effective, both from a tool standpoint, from an interpersonal standpoint. And I loved it. And what ended up happening, we couldn't be the only high performing team in the company. And like many startups in 99, we eventually went out of business. But that is how I cut my teeth and how I got into inside sales and the whole profession of sales right out of the gate in my career.
No, I think, David, I love that story. And I know so many stories that are born out of failure, like we were talking about before, people getting fired from their position and having to retool. And so it sounds like you did it really, really, really well. I think this idea of building a sales team is so foreign to lawyers and law firms because law firms, I think fail dramatically in that area. They don't have sales teams. They don't really even employ the word sales often at all. Oh, we're lawyers, like we're different creatures. So I'm curious if you care to comment on this, whether or not you have any advice for lawyers and law firms about, the utilization of sales teams.
Yeah. So first, I think everybody is in sales, and whether it's in our profession, in our day-to-day life. And I think when you look at least this is an outside perspective, I'd love your guys' obviously perspective from inside. When you look at the lawyers who end up, especially at like the big firms and things like that, to be the partners and to be the highest level and the ones who make the most, often, ironically, maybe, I don't know, are the best salespeople, the best people who really have those types of interpersonal skills, who know how to build relationships, who know how to, at least at a high level, solve problems, not necessarily, and again, I'd love your perspective because this is an outside perspective, the most brilliant legal minds, right? And that's maybe unfortunate, but also maybe understandable. And so I think it doesn't mean that you should obviously abandon the day-to-day and be a really great lawyer at what you do. But I think it shows the power of sales and the importance of sales, even in the legal profession. And so I think sometimes sales gets a bad rap. Like, right. When I went back to business school, there was only one sales class, and that was in sales management, not the day-to-day of how to sell. And the most successful people who graduate with me, I will tell you, are the best salespeople. The best entrepreneurs, they became partners at consulting companies. And the skill of sales, I think, is undervalued in an academic and a social way, and then overvalued from a career progression and monetary standpoint. And so I think it's really important for people to dispel some of the negative notions of being a great salespeople or being a great salesperson, knowing that it's really going to accelerate their career, accelerate their personal life if they approach sales in the right way. So the question is, what is the right way and why do salespeople get a bad rap? I think salespeople get a bad rap because of the fact that there are a lot of crappy salespeople out there, right? Who do crappy sales things. And then those are the people who are put into movies and things like that, like Glenn Ross, Wolf of Wall Street, all those things. But I think there's a really great way to appreciate and be a great salesperson. And and at the end of the day, over the long term, that's the way to be the most successful salesperson. If you are the Wolf of Wall Street salesperson, you will be great for a few years and have yachts and things like that, and then you'll go into jail. So
that's right.
But I think great salespeople, and this translates to every salesperson, and especially in the legal profession, is about building relationships, asking great questions, understanding where they're coming from, their needs, and then figuring out whether you can solve them or not, and then being honest if you can or can't. Because the best way to ruin your professional reputation, your firm's professional reputation, is to sell somebody on something that you can't deliver on. You might get that initial sale, but you are going to ruin your reputation. And the best salespeople have great reputations, get referrals, and build from there. So
that's a great point. That's a great point. And so focusing again, just sort of on professional firms like law firms, there are some that go straight out to the consumer, right? You've got, your criminal lawyers, you've got your PI that sort of, you see all the commercials and the billboards and all of that. And that's one way, to engage in sales. And then you have firms like ours, which, we don't do that, right? But we try to create relationships, but more long-term, right? So what you're talking about, a lot of what you do is creating a relationship in a very short time period, And so there are certain skills, I think, that you need in order to get that person on the other side of the line, if it's a phone or Zoom or whatever it is, to sort of, to believe in you, to buy in, and to close that sale, within a narrow time period. Whereas when we talk about creating relationships, it can be over, years in order to get that relationship, so that the person on the other side that's either hiring us or referring somebody to us has seen us, has worked with us, knows us, so there's that long-term buy-in, that long-term reputation that you just don't get in that immediate sort of interaction.
Yeah. So basically, what I would say, and first for your listeners, what we do at SalesRoads is we're a B2B sales outsourcing company that focuses on lead generation and appointment setting. So we work with a lot of technology companies. We work with large Fortune 500 companies that are really going out and trying to create new relationships, trying to talk to new prospects, and we help them with that first interaction. So Brett, what you're talking about is that the time frame to do that initial relationship, because we definitely focus on like cold calling and an initial unexpected interaction, is very different than building a long-term relationship. Mm-hmm. And so the way we frame it and the way we help our clients is really a fewfold. So first, every relationship starts with an initial introduction, right? An initial point, whether it's at a trade show, at a dinner party, whatever it might be, right? And in sales, you want to maximize the number of times you have that opportunity to create an initial relationship. And you've got to think about, for your own business and your own way of doing things, what are the ways you can do it? You can do it through inbound marketing, you can do it through trade shows, you can do it through just your network. But what we found for our clients is it's important to be able to also target those types of people who might make for a great initial relationship that can build into a client and build into a long-term relationship. And so we really focus on first targeting for our clients, because there are lots of people out there that you can reach out to, but it's really important to know who your ideal customer is and who are the people within those organizations that you can really help. And then go out and make that initial contact with them. And what I would argue is that it's really important to do it in a way that's not pushy and salesy, but be able to ask some questions pretty quickly to assess whether it makes sense to start an initial relationship, to start having a conversation, to see whether you can help them. And we have found that you can do that through a cold call, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a relationship you've built over time. And that helps to accelerate your growth. You can do it just through old relationships and happenstance and things like that. But if you can proactively prospect into the types of companies and people that you believe you can help, a lot of them are going to say, no, you can't. A good percentage will. And you then have started a new relationship that will potentially blossom into something bigger as far as a client relationship or referral down the road.
That's a great approach. And I think one that I think lawyers and law firms could really learn from, because we tend to be a little bit more passive in our sales efforts. I'm putting air quotes around the word sales, because lawyers are, we're restricted by certain ethical considerations. We can't just cold call people.
Right.
But if we knew, using whatever your lead gen technology or whatever it is, if I was a real estate lawyer and I knew that, this certain number of people in Miami-Dade County looked at multi-million-dollar homes during the month of February, I could canvass them in March and, like you said, potentially build some relationships in a more active way and less passive, not, through grassroots introductions, walking into the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of lawyers, it's not that we fall short. It's not even part of our calculus. That's
right.
a lot of time.
And I would say with technology too, you can really figure out where you can be more relevant and how you can help people without even picking up the phone. So a lot of the work we do is before we even try to make that initial reaction. So our initial connection, like, so for instance, for SalesRoads, we help a lot of technology companies who are trying to build an outbound motion. And one of the signals is whether they're hiring for that role. It's called an SDR, sales development representative. It is super easy to scrape jobs websites to see who is hiring for that role right now. And then secondly, another trigger for us is whether they actually have a manager who is managing that role, because it's really hard to do what we do, right? It's hard to build an inside sales team. And so we can look at both. We can see whether they have somebody already on staff who's managing this department. We can see whether they're hiring for this role. And then we can build a list based upon those types of companies with a very specific set of questions, around, have you built this before? How difficult was it? Is it something that you have succeeded with in the past? What if you didn't need to hire all these people and you could partner with a company that's helped, sell into your ICP, and so then you can have some aha moments on the other side of the phone where they can say, well, maybe there's a better way of doing this, but it's very relevant to them because, for instance, in this example, they're hiring somebody. They're wanting to do this, and we want to show them maybe there's a more effective, easier way for them to be able to prospect outbound.
So this is interesting. I don't know why this just hit me, but you're effectively selling your services to build a sales team, a B2B sales team, lead generation for your clients.
Yes.
And so in hiring, right, for your firm, your company, are there certain personalities or certain personality traits that you look for in terms of someone who might, in fact, be good at sales? And I'll tell you this, for lawyers, there are some lawyers that, they just want to work. They just want to practice law, put them in an office, put them wherever, and they just want, or court, and they just want to practice. They don't want to engage in relationships. They don't want to, go get business. They don't want to do anything. And so there are certain personalities that do it, and can do it and become good at it as opposed to not,
Yeah. So I think some of the personality traits are antithetical to what you might think. So for instance, we have a lot of people, me included, who are more introverted. A lot of people think of the best salespeople as being extroverted and whatnot, but there are amazing skills that introverts have that I've found can be really effective in sales in general and what we do. Yes, you need to get over being able to cold call and handle that rejection. But after that, the best selling, as I've alluded to, is asking great questions and being able to listen and be able to listen between the lines sometimes, being able to pick up little signals to know when to ask more or to know when to ask something else. And those introverts are much better than extroverts. So first I want to start with that just because I find that that's kind of interesting. But the number one thing we look for and is raw motivation. Best salespeople just stay motivated and keep their activity up. That's outside salespeople too, but especially in inside sales. You've got to be able to continue calling, be able to get punched in the mouth and still stay motivated throughout the day. It's really hard to do what we do. And so that raw level of motivation is really important. And so the way that we assess it, a lot of companies actually hire for this role with kids out of college, kind of like me when I built my inside sales team. But what we found is that we love recruiting people who are later stage in their career, who have built a career around inside sales, who really understand what it is to prospect, and they just love the hunt. And they, have stayed motivated through their career. They know how to stay motivated throughout the day. And that is really the number one thing. The second thing is tonality. It's a phone job, and the way that you sound is super important. You've all gotten really annoying calls, and somebody who really sounds, it's almost grating. And our best reps just know how to speak. They speak in a slow, methodical way. They don't rush, and they really can engage somebody in a short period of time just through the tonality of their voice, which gives them some more permission and room to be able to engage, ask the questions, and figure out whether we can help them or not.
So interesting. I mean, I would say, like you, probably more introverted, and yet my career path is one that is, requires me to be more extroverted in what I do, whether it's creating relationships, for sales, if you will, sales in quotes, but in order to build a business, being a leader of a business, as well as, going to court and representing clients, depositions, mediate, whatever it is, requires me to be a little more extroverted. But the key, and this is something that we always talk about and we always push here and frankly at home with kids, is you got to listen more than you speak in some cases, because that's when you'll learn and figure out your path, right? And that's not just in sales, but that's in anything. And so I love that. And you're right. People that, I don't know how you find that raw motivation and how you sort of figure out if somebody has that or not. I don't know if you have any tools or any sort of secrets to figuring out how somebody, a prospect, has raw motivation. That's something that obviously we would look for and do look for in people that we bring onto our team as well.
Yeah, big thing is really the past record and really getting a sense of if they've been in this career for long periods of time, if they've had success for long periods of time, shows that type of motivation. Also, the follow-up in the interview process, some of my best SDRs just were relentless at trying to work with us. And so, it is best to be able to assess people in the interview process, because that's where it's actually showing their true mettle. Another thing we do in our interview is we do actual role plays, right? So the second thing I said, which was important, is the tonality. And so we actually have them study a client, a fake client, see how they prepared, and then we do that role play with them. And so that way we can see actually in action, how do they perform? How do they ask questions? How do they handle objections? And then we actually give them feedback in the interview. And one of the other key things is, are they coachable? Are they going to take feedback and integrate it? And so we look for that. We see whether they say, okay, let me try this again. Let me take that feedback. Let me do it. And those are all the types of things that we are evaluating through that interview process.
I don't know if this is a gear shift or not, but you mentioned the sales team and appointment setting. What's the appointment setting piece of that?
Yeah, so it's the first part of the sales cycle. So, for instance, if you're a B2B technology, a SaaS platform, and you are looking for, let's say you help construction companies manage, at their work site and create project plans and things like that. They might have a great SaaS platform. They might be getting out there through podcasts or trade shows, things like that. But they have a very specific type of company and type of person within those companies that might be interested in their product or service. So what we do is we prospect both through email, calling, to try to get a hold of those individuals within those companies and then see if they're interested, see if they have a need. And then if they have a need, we'll set an appointment with the sales rep at our client's company to then have a specific 30-minute sales call with that person to talk a little bit more about their needs, use cases, and see whether they want a demo of their software or not.
I love it. Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit from the business side and your entrepreneurship to your personal side. And I know that you have created, this is almost salesy, but not really. You've created your own holiday with your family. And I love it. I think it's fantastic. Tell our listeners a little bit about it, because I think it's so creative and it's such a great way to bring everybody into the fold and have the kids look forward to something and have something that is unique to you and your family.
Yeah. So as my kids have been getting older, I've realized that I need to create moments to really make sure that we spend time together, but also to create memories and things that they can look back on and maybe even do with their own families. And so I don't know how it came to us, but we decided that, there's all these national holidays, federal holidays, and, some are meaningful, some aren't. And we thought, what would be more meaningful than having our own family holiday, not necessarily a birthday or an anniversary, but let's just create a day for the Kreigers where we spend a full day together as a family and just do fun, silly stuff. And so once a year, we have Kriegs a Day. So David Kreiger, we're Kriegs a Day, and it is our own family holiday where we spend a whole day together, and there can be lots of different things we do, whether it's scavenger hunts or just staying home doing board games and things like that. But one of the specific things we always do is we break out our china, which we got for our wedding, and use.
I love this part. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe once a year, but often not, because we don't even want to spend, on a big family holiday. We don't want to spend all the time for all the different family members cleaning the china. But we break it out for the four of us, and we order Domino's pizza and cook Annie's mac and cheese, and we eat it on our china in our dining room, the four of us, to celebrate Kriegs a Day. And the kids get a little Gatorade. My wife and I, we have a beverage. And so we just want to, create little things and moments like that. The kids look forward to it. They're like, how many more days till Kriegs a Day? And it's just a wonderful little family holiday that I hope they will pass on to their kids as well.
I love that. I love that, right? Yeah. How do you come up with the activities during, for Kriegs a Day? And obviously it's going to change as the kids get older, and maybe what you guys eat might change as the kids get a little older as well.
Maybe not.
Right, maybe not. Tell us about how you guys come up with sort of the agenda, the activities for the day.
Yeah, so it's a no holds bar. So everybody comes up, with different things, and then we try to think of something that's fun. So one of the things we did this year, though, was we did a scavenger hunt. So leveraging ChatGPT, we created clues for like 4 different places that we could go visit as a family and do throughout the day, and created a clue for each of them leveraging ChatGPT. And so the kids had to like figure out what it was, where we were going, and then we would arrive there. And so, down here in South Florida, there's a pinball museum where you can spend, an hour or two just playing pinball games. They figured out that clue, and we went there. One was to go to Target, where they then picked out a board game, and then that was one of the board games we played. So it was just different things like that. But we made it into a scavenger hunt where they had to figure out where we were going, and then we would go and drive there to each place.
Cool. How old are your children now?
9 and 11.
Okay, so they're going to start making things more complex, I'm sure, for you. Your scavenger hunts will get more challenging, and then they'll be driving, and
that's right. And then
what day of the year? What day of the year is Kriegs a Day? Kriegs a Day.
So the Saturday of the 3rd weekend in February.
Nice. I love that. I'm a big fan of family traditions, and great that you established it while your kids are young, because it just becomes part of their life as they age. Fantastic.
And before we wrap, you did mention the ChatGPT, and I did want to say that David is, really invested in AI, has really become, knowledgeable and has somewhat of an expertise in the area. And I think that is something that we can bring you back to talk about, which we didn't, I apologize for, which is how that's going to impact your business in particular, because I do think there's significant impact on it. So we'll just have to have you back for another round to talk about AI. And I think you're just going to get more knowledgeable and have greater expertise in that. So I think that's something our listener would benefit from. So
for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to talk more about that at some point. It's going to it's definitely impacting my business already, going to potentially completely change it in the next year to 5 years. But I think it's actually going to change every business in many ways. And so it is a fascinating topic.
And it has changed Kriegs a Day as well. So there you go.
That's right. Our scavenger hunts are that much better.
That's right. That's right.
Fantastic.
Read us out.
You want me to read us out?
Read us out.
I will. I'm glad to do that. If
Thank you
enjoyed
David.
this podcast as much as I did, and I doubt that because I really thoroughly enjoyed it. But if you did, leave us a 5-star review, share the show, follow us. The best way for other people to find the show is for you to leave us reviews. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Nelson.
Thanks, Nelson.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.